this is the first meditation talk of the new year, 2018. And I was talking to the kids about the new year, the beginning of this week, and I said something very profound. And I'm sure they all got it. But it's basically, what year is this?
2018.
This is 2018. Last year, 2017, doesn't exist anymore. So however you were last year and whatever happened last year and whatever, all that stuff that you normally drag from last year into this year and all that stuff where you think of your, I have this problem or I have that problem and it's just kind of like who I am, it's just me. That's BS. That's nonsense. That was last year. 2018 is totally different. And one of the ways that this is going to be a completely different year for you is you're actually going to accomplish the goals that you set out to accomplish. This, for me, was a defining part of my practice very early on. I went to Sifu Brown's, let's say that I started in, I believe, June, and after I was there for a few months, however many months that is to get to January, it was either late December, early January, Sifu Brown did a similar talk to this. And it is centered around or kind of based off of this idea of the acronym SMART for goals. So when we say SMART goals, there's something that each letter stands for, and we'll go over that in a second. But it was the first time that I had actually heard a great description and got a good understanding of what it really means to set a goal that is going to work. And it goes beyond just having a vague idea of this is something that I want to do, isn't that nice? Having the idea is nice and it gives you nothing. Being able to break it down and have manageable, workable steps for you to work on. That's something that actually leads to a successful goal. That's something that leads to you accomplishing the things that you want. So first I'll just give a brief overview of the acronym and what each thing means, and then I'll go through it with my goal, and then we'll go through it with you guys. So this was in a meditation class when I heard it. So the goal that I had in mind was meditation. I want to get better at meditation. And the acronym that we lay out starts with the letter S. If you don't know how to spell the word SMART, I'm going to do it tonight, and then you should just refer back to this talk whenever you need to. But the S stands for specific. So I want to get better at meditation. It's got a little bit of specificity. It's a little bit more specific than saying, for example, I just want to have a better brain, or I want to pay attention more. So saying I want to meditate, that's a little bit specific, but you could get even more specific and say, I want to get better at doing this specific type of meditation that we practice in the dojo, Zazen sitting meditation, where I focus on the breath and I'm disciplining my mind. And there are thousands of different types of meditation, probably hundreds of thousands of different types, but this is the specific kind that I want to get better at. Anybody know what the M stands for? Some of you guys have heard this before, right? What's the measurable? So it's specific, but is it measurable? I'm going to practice Zazen sitting meditation. That's not necessarily measurable, right? So the measurable, when you're talking about meditation, it often refers to the time, but that's at the end of the acronym. So the measurable for meditation would be like, I want to meditate to the point where I can actually get some kind of a measurable effect from it, right? So I meditate and I see either in my meditation I'm able to get to a certain amount of depth, or a better way for you to measure how good your meditation is, besides how long you're doing it for, is what do people outside the dojo say to you about you? So if people usually say, Mr. Holzer, he's a nice guy, but he just doesn't pay attention to anything, then you want that to turn into, Mr. Holzer's a nice guy and he pays attention to everything. You've been really, you're just a lot more focused. What's happening? What have you been doing? And you think to yourself, it's all that meditation that I'm doing in 2018. But a measurable result would be something like that I can actually point to and see. With meditation, it can get a little bit tricky for that one, but we'll move on. So you guys remember what the A stands for? Huh? So in a different version of this, it's accountability. In this one, it's achievable. So this is basically, is it possible or impossible? If it's an impossible goal, we don't do those. We do possible goals. Is it achievable? And so I have to be able to set up my goal in a way that it is achievable. What's the R stand for?
Realistic?
Yeah, or reasonable. So reasonable, realistic. Which sounds very similar to achievable, but I still like it because I'm going to make a distinction between reasonable and unreasonable goals. But is this reasonable? So let's say I'll skip ahead to T. What's the T stand for? Time or timely. So what is the time component? So basically, if I get to the T, I'm going to say, I'm going to meditate every single day this year. And the other time part of it would be, how long am I meditating for every day? So I'm going to be meditating for this year, my goal is 1 hour every single day and 2 hours once a week. So if I get to the end of the year and I've accomplished all of this, right? It's a specific measurable goal. It's achievable. For me, it's reasonable. For some people, it's definitely not reasonable to meditate every day for an hour because you say that you don't have the time, but really it's like you are not ready to put in that kind of effort, or you'll go insane sitting there for an hour. And the time component is very clear, right? We'll get into what an unreasonable goal is later on, but when I first made my goal of meditation, it was not an hour every single day, it was 20 minutes a day. But I said, I'm going to do this 20 minutes a day every single day for this year. And before martial arts and definitely before meditation, was a master of procrastination. I was expert at being lazy, and I had never really made a goal and definitely never accomplished a goal. Like I had vague things like, I'm going to be on the soccer team this year, and I made it on the soccer team, but like something that it has long-lasting, serious implications, I had never done that before. And one of the great things about this is you get your goal down into manageable chunks. So if you kind of zoom out and say, like, from meditation, my goal is to become enlightened. If you just set that as your goal and you say, I'm going to hit enlightenment, what do you do with that? You wake up one day, and if all you have in your mind is this vague idea of enlightenment, how do I get there? You don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Am I supposed to meditate? Am I supposed to be nice to people? Am I supposed to eat healthy? Am I supposed to just sit at home and stay away from people, or what? Like go live in a mountain somewhere? You don't know what that entails. So you have to break it down and make it very specific, measurable, achievable, reasonable, and timely. So for me, that's what I did. And I just said, I'm going to do it this year, 20 minutes every single day. I'm never going to miss. And I did it. And the power that you get, the sense of empowerment that you get from actually doing something every single day without fail is incredible. But any goal that you set out, and it can be something a lot more reasonable and manageable than even that for you. It might be, I'm going to meditate every day for 1 month. That is something that when you get to the end of it, you realize, I have the ability to do stuff in my life. I have the ability to change, to institute real, lasting, meaningful change in my life and in my world. So we're going to take a couple of goals, and let's just start off with the wide, basic goal, and then we'll kind of break it down and make it something that actually makes sense, something where you have some kind of action that you can take every single day or within some amount of time. So somebody give me a goal that you want to break down. Dina.
Doesn't have to be meditation.
Does not have to be I already did meditation, so don't do meditation. Do something else.
I want to be able to do a head-high side kick.
Head-high side kick. Great. So that is pretty specific, but I like it. So let's just say I want to get better at the side kick. right? So when you say specifically what is the side kick, part of it might be doing the head high. That also gets into the measurement part of it, right? So whose head high is it?
Well, me or tall.
Let's say let's start with you. If you can get to you, then we can think about somebody taller. But it's important that we denote it's not somebody shorter than you, right? So it's your head high. Now, if we're going to get more specific, where on your head? So it's going to be, let's say the bottom of your heel. Now let's take the top of your heel. When I throw my side kick like this, the top of my heel is going to get to how high on your head?
Well, I think nose.
Let's say nose. Let's aim for nose, because then at least you'll be able to hit them with a good square side kick to the jaw, right? And people watching at home for the first time, this is not like what all of our goals are going to be about, how you kick somebody in the face. But it is a specific great thing. This is a great example for what we're talking about. And also, you guys that are watching, you guys can submit something and we'll work through it too. So it's specific and it's measurable, because I know how high and I know what it is, because you know what a good side kick is, right? You think that's achievable? It's certainly possible. You think it's reasonable? It's borderline. For you, it's definitely reasonable because you're pretty flexible. It's going to be a matter of getting the strength to lift your leg up that high and keeping the technique clean. For some people in here, probably even not including me because I can already do that. But for some people in here, it would be absolutely unreasonable. Not impossible, but unreasonable. You can do that though. So time. So let's talk about this. So we know that it's specific, and part of the measurement is how high can I throw it. The other part of the measurement is going to be like how many do I do, and then also in the time component it's going to be how long do I give myself to do that. So the two basic ways I like to break something like this down are how many days in a row am I going to do this for, or am I going to do it, X number of times each week, or just a blunt number. I'm going to do 1,000 side kicks, So it's going to be up to you. Do you want to do it like X number of side kicks a day or X number of side kicks a week, or do you want to say I'm just going to take this number of side kicks and break that down?
Probably a week would work best.
So we want each week, and for how long?
You mean like?
Are we going to do this for the whole year, or are we just going to do this for 1 week? How long are you going to do it for?
I would do it until I can.
Until I can get the side kick that high. It takes me till I die. I'm throwing side kicks.
Well, no, for the year then.
Great. So I agree. Let's start with a year. So the idea is, if you look at it as I'm going to throw a side kick head high, and you kind of leave that open-ended, then I'm just throwing side kicks willy-nilly, like I may or may not ever get there. But if I break it down and I think to myself, what do I really think what is it going to take for me to get my side kick to be able to do that? And I would say if I give myself a year, I can probably do that. But even that is not enough because I'm not really throwing side kicks yet. So how many side kicks are we going to do each week for the entire year? With this specific thing in mind of being able to get it up head high.
I don't want to hurt myself.
I don't want you to hurt yourself either.
How about 100?
100 a week. That's a good round number. So you will have arrived at what, 5,200 at the end of the year? Is that right? Yeah. So that's a good number of side kicks. Now that's a whole year that you've got to do that. If you do 100 a week, that's really easy to do. If you just do Monday through Friday, it's 20 a day. You can pretty easily do that, right? Now, I would even suggest you break it down further and say, I'm going to do this many every single day. But maybe you allow yourself a little bit of wiggle room, and I didn't do it today, so I'm going to double up tomorrow, right? But by the end of the week, if you haven't done it, you're doing 100 in one shot. Before you go to sleep on Sunday, it's 100 side kicks. Now you can get even more specific with it, like how exactly am I practicing the side kick? Is somebody holding a mitt for me to hit? Or am I balancing by putting my hand on something and sometimes I'm practicing it slowly. I know Mr. Holzer has been working on something like this, And it's like part of the way that you should be practicing it is actually throwing it really slowly, because that's going to help build up the muscle. And that's a big part of being able to kick head high. So I know that you could just throw your foot up and get it up head high, but to throw a clean side kick means to practice it slowly sometimes. So keep kind of refining that. But if you do 100 side kicks with this intention every single week, I would be very surprised if by the end of the year you didn't get to that. Give me another one. Nobody else wants to, because you're all like, well, shit, I'm going to have to do 100 side kicks every week. Sir,
I have one.
give me something that's not a side kick goal.
Can it still be a martial arts goal, or should it be something else?
I'm fine with either one. I would like to be able to branch this out into non-martial arts arena too.
I have
But
a martial arts one, so if someone has something else.
let's hear it.
Okay, I want to get better at sparring.
Better at sparring, great. So better at sparring is getting close to specific again. So specific, let's say you want to get better at big gloves or small gloves or both, or what?
Both.
Okay, so let's say I want to get better at both small glove sparring and big glove sparring. And you know what sparring is because we do the specific sparring drills in the dojo. Some people at home watching might not know what I'm talking about, but it's basically like you've got sparring gear on, you've got gloves on, and you're getting better at being able to hit somebody and not let them hit you, right? So measurable would be, let's just kind of put it all together and look at a way that would do it. And this is just going to be an example of how I would do it, not necessarily what you have to do. But if you want to take it on, you're definitely welcome to. So a SMART goal would look something like kind of what we discussed earlier today. So I'm going to come to at least one advanced class or sparring class every single week for the entire year. And when I'm in each class, I go into this drill with something specific that I'm working on that pertains to sparring. So it's not just enough to show up, I got to actually decide. Today I'm working on sidestepping in sparring, or today I'm working on combinations in sparring, right? And if you show up to one class where you're sparring or doing something that's sparring related, and you go into it working on something specific every single time, and you do that every single week for the entire year, then you will have done, let's say, 52 sparring classes, which is going to be, let's say you get a solid half an hour of sparring into each one. So we're looking at about 25, 26 hours of sparring that you've put in this year. That would be probably more than you've done for the rest of your practice combined thus far. That would be something. That would definitely lead you to something that you've improved. Now, that might only be part of it. You might say, well, that's what I'm going to do when I go into the class of the dojo, but I've got stuff that I can do at home. So you add something in, sprinkle on a little bit extra. So at home, I'm going to work on sidestepping, or at home, I'm going to work on combinations in the air. And you got to get specific and measurable about all of that stuff, right? Now, that's all pretty reasonable. You could say it would be unreasonable for me to say, I'm going to go to every single sparring and advanced class every single week. For you, like living where you live and the amount that you can come to class, it's pretty unreasonable. For some people, it would be totally reasonable, those of you who are here like every single day. But that is a great way to break it down. And you know what there is for me to do today. Today, if there's class, and this is the day that I've decided I'm going to class, right? If it's a day that I've decided I'm not going to class, but instead I'm working on sidestepping at home, then that's what there is for me to do today. If it's a day where I have nothing to do, okay, I'm working on something else. Tomorrow is the day that I'm going to class, so I do that then. What you want is every single day during the period of time of this goal, you want to have something that you can take action on. Even if the action that you're taking on it is, I know that I can set that aside and not do that today because I'm working on it tomorrow. Somebody else? Yes, ma'am, Monica.
It's not a martial arts goal.
Great.
It's a bad habit that I have, which sounds like it's a nice thing, but it's not. I have a tendency to do for others things that they need to do for themselves. And although that may seem helpful, it's really disrespectful, I believe, because I am not allowing the other person to, stand on their own 2 feet and live their lives.
Absolutely.
So I am aware of it, and I can't stop myself.
Until today. I want to work on not doing for others what they can do for themselves, or basically helping somebody stand on their own 2 feet rather than doing everything for them, teaching somebody how to fish instead of just giving them fish, something in this.
Kind of like that.
Great. So barring all the political connotations of that, let's just get into like the meat of what this would mean like for you on a practical level. So do you want to give me an example of something like this?
Cooking for someone.
Cooking for somebody. Okay. So I'll just take this into my life, and so that we don't get too much into what you're doing. Like, I don't want you get home and somebody to say like, what is this? How come you're not cooking for me anymore? So let's just say for me, I don't want somebody to say you're not allowed to go to the dojo anymore because you stopped cooking. But I'll just take this into my life, and let's say that I'll pretend that I cook every day for somebody. The only person I cook for every day is me. But let's say that there's somebody else at home, and I'm cooking for them every single day, and I want to be able to take on the goal of helping them take care of that part of their lives. So what I might decide to do is, choose one dish every week that I'm teaching them how to cook. Or even just one time every week that we're kind of cooking together and I'm getting them to do it, right? It might be, I might kind of fold in other things into it, like there's a certain amount of health that has to be involved in the meal. Like I'm not teaching them how to order Domino's, I'm teaching them how to cook something that's got X number of calories, or that's, that's vegetarian or vegan or whatever it is. But let's just say I'm one time each week, I'm teaching them how to cook something, or I don't want to put that much into it. One time each week, they're cooking something and I'm going to eat it. And it's either good or it's bad, but they're doing it, right? So there's something that's specific and measurable and timely about that. I'm just going to decide I'm going to do that every year. Or I might decide like on a time scale, I'm going to spend 1 hour each week helping this person learn how to cook. Or I'm going to... Well, that's a good enough example, right? So, do we think that this is something that's achievable? It's certainly possible. Whether or not for you in your situation this is reasonable, I don't know. For me in my fantasy land, yeah, it's certainly reasonable. If this person doesn't cook, there will be consequences. I'm really good at laying down consequences. So this is one way that you could do this, and you see how it went from doing for others to more specific, cooking to more specific. Like today, I know this is what I'm going to do, right? It might be that today I'm reminding them, go get the ingredients that you're going to need to cook tonight or tomorrow or whatever it is, right? And kind of you want to break it down into something where it's each day is manageable. And that's just another great example of I took something that if I look at it from the broad, big perspective, it seems impossible, break it down into something very manageable and reasonable. Okay, so I'm sure some of you guys have other great things that you want to bring up, but I'm definitely running out of time. So I'm going to take this into the last idea, which is very, very important as well. Because you want to have reasonable goals, but you also want to have unreasonable goals. So a reasonable goal is something like everything that we've talked about. And an unreasonable goal is pretty simple. This is how you know that you've got an unreasonable goal. You say it to yourself. No, you say it to somebody else. And this is an important part of making goals, by the way, is telling other people that you're doing these things. Because if it's just living inside your head and you haven't at least written it down and for sure tell somebody about it, then it just is really easy for you to just say like, I'm not doing this year anymore, because you run into the first bump in the road and it's easy to just let it go. But you want other people to start to call you out on it. So the first time you tell somebody your goal, so one of my goals that's a reasonable goal is I'm going to read 12 books this year, one each month. And that for me is reasonable. I already read every day, but usually I read when I'm going to bed, so it's about 5 minutes before I go to sleep. I will not get through 12 books this year if I do that. So for me, it's like a little bit of a stretch, but if I were to take it and say, I'm going to read 50 books this year, that would, I feel already that that's almost impossible. I know that I can do it, but it's going to really take something. It's going to take me fundamentally changing something about myself and fundamentally changing something about my life in order to achieve that. And you see how it has all the other components, other than, well, I guess I should say, like, the book has to be a certain length. It's not fair if I read like a 2-page pamphlet. That doesn't count as a book, but you guys get it, right? It is gonna really take something for me. And so if we were to say, like, your sparring goal, unreasonable would be, I'm gonna spar every single day. I'll take Sunday off because the dojo's closed, but every single other day I'm gonna spar for some amount of time. That would be almost impossible, but possible. You might have to find people outside of the dojo to spar with. You might have to show up early and leave late, but it would be possible. Now, you kind of have to choose what you're going to take on here. And my suggestion to you is you should have at least one reasonable goal and at least one unreasonable goal. If you only have an unreasonable goal, you will likely just fail at it and never make goals again for the rest of your life. If you only have reasonable goals, you're going to get to the point where you're really feeling strong about your ability to make goals, and it's going to still kind of be in the realm of everything's a little bit comfortable for me. So goal setting is just one area in which martial arts should help us kind of get out of our little comfort area, our bubble of comfort, and start to be unreasonable with ourselves. So when you make your goals, it's important that it kind of has all of these qualities to it. It's specific, measurable, achievable, reasonable, timely. It's something that is really broken down into manageable chunks. You want to write down your goals, have it be somewhere other than in your head. You want to tell people about it. Tell as many people as you can. You guys notice that every year I tell you my goals because I want you, and you ask me about it, and you keep reminding me, and I'm like, oh, I've got to be a great example for the students. So I got to make sure that I actually do these things that I said that I was going to do. And I usually do it. It helps me a lot. And one of the biggest, most important things is knowing you are going to hit a bump in the road at some point. You will, like my famous example of going vegan for a year that lasted approximately 10 minutes. I said, I'm going to be vegan this year, and the first thing that I did was eat a piece of candy that I looked at it after, and it's like, this has milk in it. And most people, they do something like that early on, and they just fall off the wagon completely, and they say, well, this year's shot, I already ruined it in the first 5 minutes. I guess it just wasn't meant to be. That is copping out, make no mistake. So you hit that bump in the road, and you can still basically honor your word to yourself and decide, I'm going to get right back on it, and forget that ever happened. That may as well have been 2017. This new year is the year when I'm vegan, right? I'm not going vegan this year, by the way, but I've got other things that are related to it. I'm being reasonable with that one. You're going to hit that bump in the road, and the important thing is to get right back on track. And the longer you wait, you say like, well, I ate something that wasn't vegan today, so I'll just give myself until the end of this week, and then I'll get right back on it. The longer you wait, the longer it's going to take, the more impossible it's going to be. So you really want to just get right back on it immediately. It's like Ueshiba Sensei, the founder of Aikido, who his students would watch him moving and pivoting, and he looks basically like me when he does martial arts. And they would say, his master is so incredible, he never gets off balance, he's always on balance, it's amazing. And he heard this and he said, that's totally untrue. I get off balance all the time, but I get myself back on balance so quickly that you never even notice it. This is really our goal, right? So goal setting and accomplishing them is just another way to get us used to this idea of I'm always seeking perfect balance, and I get off balance one direction, I pull myself back. I get off balance the other direction, I pull myself back. And it's really coming down to time and what is the action that I'm taking today. If I let it go too far off the road, it becomes impossible to bring it back. So bring it back right away. So this is also, like you've heard me talk about in meditation, very related, right? Because in meditation, I let myself stray for too long, and all of a sudden this whole meditation is shot, right? So as soon as I can recognize a thought, I bring myself right back. And I'm going and I'm going. As soon as I recognize a thought, I bring myself back. This is just another example of how we're disciplining our minds, disciplining our bodies,